My name's Ian Hamilton. I'm part of a movement of in-house recruiters you probably didn't know existed. We are not administrators or CV passers. We are not field agency recruiters. Quite the opposite. We know that we have the upper hand when attracting people for our business. Because we are fighting to deliver the demands of our hiring managers and find the best people, we have to do things differently. We don't have an endless supply of job boards and databases to cold call, but we know we have the upper hand. We build employer brands, we create engaging recruitment campaigns. Our teams deliver more value than an agency could ever dream of, and we care about our candidates. But here is the question: how do we cut through the deafening noise of the recruitment industry and grab the attention of our talent pools? And that is what this podcast is all about. Welcome to TAHack. Okay, folks, we've got Ben here today, Ben Gledhill, who works for Manchester Metropolitan University. Ben's got a really exciting topic for us today. I absolutely love this one. I've worked with clients on stuff like this, and I encourage every company to have a look at the employer branding. But most often, the kind of challenges that you face with SMEs is that they simply don't have enough money to spend on creating these big careers websites. They don't have the 50, 60, 70,000 pounds to invest in an overall employer branding campaign to hire one of the good agencies in the UK that's doing this work. So Ben's got a really cracking talk for us today all around how to do DIY employer branding. So Ben, as a way of us getting kind of stuck into this today, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to you, your career, and who you're working for now?
Yeah, definitely. So hi guys, hope you're all well. My name's Ben Gledhill. I've got just about 12 years recruitment experience, got to think then. And my current role is employer branding and candidate experience manager at Manchester Metropolitan University. Like most things in my career, I was kind of falling into employer branding just from a need of having to do it really. And obviously candidate experience kind of falls into that. And my big passion is employer branding, DIY, on a shoestring, what they want to kind of say, and and really kind of getting to know the real kind of creative things that you can do, the cool, some of the technology out there that's really expanding and doesn't have to be that expensive. And just kind of taking it back to what recruiters are really good at, being creative, not using a lot of budget, and using some real kind of cool ideas to get your message out there.
Okay, good stuff, Ben. Thanks for that. So where will we start today? Let's start talking about what you've done maybe in the past with DIY employer branding, and maybe the first couple of steps that you would take if you were doing a DIY employer brand.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess everything, whether it's content marketing, whether it's a recruitment website, whether it's something as simple as how you communicate with a candidate over email, you have to find, I don't massively like the term EVP. I much just prefer the phrase people proposition. And it really is the why, and although why gets talked about a lot these days, but it's just the why somebody would join your organization. Now, yeah, don't get me wrong, a lot of blue chips, a lot of FTSE 100 spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on work with some very good creative agencies to do focus groups, to do testing, to do this, to do that. But there's no reason why you can't actually find this yourself. Simply start speaking to the people inside your organisation in terms of what engages them, why did they join, what do they enjoy working at your organisation. And even if you don't have access to exit interviews, which a lot of organisations don't, use Glassdoor, use things like Indeed, and actually go on there and start to kind of segment the information in terms of what people thought of leaving. And naturally, you will start to see threads and trends, and it's something that I've done in my last organisation and here, and you will see certain pillars or what can we offer non-tangibly to organisations. So if it's a startup, it might be a very aggressive drive in your career and knowledge. If you're at a university like here, you might have access to various technologies, various people, various kind of opportunities for self-progression. Or it might be at Sophology, my last organisation, whereby you can mix things like customer service and digital, omni-commerce, all these cool things, which is historically and traditionally not two things that kind of marry together. So as simple as it sounds, you've really got to find the real why. And then once you've got that, you can start to create some of the messaging and start thinking, okay, so we found the why. How does that why work for customer services? What's the why for marketing? Because, I think it was Bill Borman that coined the phrase IVP, individual value proposition. Thanks, Bill. And I think that is where the industry is going now. Although it's good to have an overall message, each individual job needs that why and that proposition behind it to make sure that you're really tapping into that segmented audience.
Okay, cool. So this is really starting off the project with some solid research. So yes, we're talking about doing a DIY employer brand, but we're not talking about removing the essential elements of creating your EVP and your employer brand. Okay, so you definitely are still doing your research. You're still talking to people in your organization. You're still pulling together the sentiment that people have about your company, and then transferring that into key messages that are relevant and promote your brand. But you're doing it in a way that you're doing it as an in-house project. And quite often, am I right in thinking that you're probably doing it over a much shorter period of time? So you're not taking 6 months to do your research or to develop. You're kind of taking a much more agile approach to developing this. Would I be right in thinking that, Ben?
101%, Ian. Absolutely bob on. So yeah, I mean, I personally, I think a proposition for a job or an organisation lasts for what, 6 to 9 to 12 months max, because organisations and cultures change over time. So if we look at Google, is the culture at Google now the same as, say, the year 2000? Definitely not. Man Met Uni, where I am, the culture now will be nothing like it will in 2 years. So you're constantly having to evolve and find the real kind of, the whys and kind of the real kind of bites that will get people in. There's no difference for me holding a focus group, finding your people proposition, to holding a focus group to review your annual employee opinion surveys. It's exactly the same. If you can understand that basic methodology of speaking to people, getting the data, analysing that data, and then pulling out key segments, that's all it is. And I'm obviously some of the bigger employer branding agencies will add a lot of science to that. But I think a lot of organisations get a little bit too wrapped up. It's literally finding them very, very basic threads that you can then break into a little bit deeper. Okay,
cool. It's an area that I see companies sometimes getting stuck in, Ben. So they continually go round in that circle. Sometimes, and this is actually probably more often a trait of a company that's trying to do it themselves. Okay, so they're going round in the circle of continually doing research and more research and more research, creating more key messages and more key messages. And by the time they've got to progress to the next stage of the project, the research that they have done is already out of date. And it's already not feeling right, or something has happened in the industry to change the way they're going or whatever. How do you avoid that whenever you're doing a DIY employer brand project?
Yeah, Joe, it's a little bit of a tough one, and it's something that I faced on numerous occasions. But I think there are definitely, everything that we're talking about today, and it's something that you'll kind of see me talking about a lot if you have the misfortune to follow me, is something like this needs a top table or executive sponsor to really drive this through the business. And it's one of those things whereby, a lot of companies will worry or, oh yeah, but it needs to be perfect. The most important thing is finding something that makes you different from the crowd. If your message or your website or your social media content is the same as your competitors, your neighbours, or whoever, it hasn't worked. And I think you need that kind of that executive sponsor, whether it's a HRD, a chief executive, head of marketing, whoever it is, to say, look, guys, we've done the research. These are the key messages. It matches the HR strategy. It matches the overall corporate strategy. We need to go to market with this. And I think it's one thing that is really important to think about. Although employer branding has been around for years and years and years, I think it's only recently come onto people's agendas to really take seriously. So I think it's one of those things where maybe don't be too harsh on yourself. But I think if you have that kind of that senior executive sponsor to drive decisions and treat it the same way as you would with any product or any kind of process change, hopefully that might speed things up. Okay,
cool. So I suppose, right. So a lot of recruitment professionals. So if you go to the big organizations and look at the head of recruitment, head of employer branding, head of whatever the job title, candidate engagement, experience, whatever it is, these people have 10, 15, 20 years experience. They've run multiple projects. They've got a whole wealth of experience behind them in doing this. And they quite often have that employer branding agency helping them, directing them along the way, right? So for somebody that is in a smaller organization, potentially a bit earlier in their career, how do we get that executive buy-in within an SME? So it's not enough to turn up to your managing director, your CEO, your FD, your marketing director, whatever it might be, and say, I've got a bit of an idea. I think it might be kind of cool to build an employer brand. Can I get your buy-in? That's just not going to do it. Everything has to be built in. Business cases has to have a level of commerciality built into it. So how would you go about gaining that kind of that buy-in of an executive that's going to be the kind of the driving force behind your campaign?
Yeah, so I mean, and this is this is something that I've done, and it's worked quite well. You have to, if you are going to that top table for support, you need science, you need data, you need facts, and one of the best things that you can use is a platform like Indeed or Glassdoor. Look at your reviews and look at what people are saying about you, what the general sentiment is about your chief exec, etc. But I think the most important thing is to illustrate, the number of jobs out there, and all this data can be easily downloaded from JobSite, from Total, from Reed, etc., and just illustrate the level of competition that is out there at the moment. Because I think it's one of those things about if you just go in there with maybe a pretty model, or we've got a Twitter account, or we've got a LinkedIn account, people are going to be like, well, we've had that for years, and what does that mean? But if you go in there with some hard facts around, so this organization has started 2 years ago. They started producing content. They started producing, they started to let their employees share their experiences and look at the following, look at their retention. And if you kind of put in some bits and pieces around that, you will start to get the attention of a financial director. So, I mean, one of the best things I've ever discussed with finance is if we have a good employer brand that is realistic and that is genuine, we're going to attract better people. If we attract better people, that means our retention will improve. If our retention improves, our hiring costs go down. So you need to show that it has a clear ROI. So everything that we do, whether it's content, whether it's a new website, whether it's whatever, it needs, I hate to say it, but have a pound sign at the end. And I think if you can do that, you are going to get that interest.
Yeah. I've got an analogy that I use whenever I'm kind of talking to business leaders with this, and it usually you in a certain size of an organization, still medium size, small size, you will have a couple of salespeople, you will have a couple of business development people, and I quite often try to actually get the billings of those business development people, the revenue that they're bringing into the business. And quite often between 2 or between 5 or between 10 BD people, you'll have one person that stands out from the rest, whose revenue is considerably more. And the analogy that I build in is, do you in the future want to hire the business development person A, who's billing 5x anybody else, or do you want to hire the lowest earner?
Well, this is it.
And that's, to me, what employer branding and the storytelling around your careers really does for your business. It allows you to hire the best possible people. If you rely on adverts just these days, then you've got the challenge of kind of a haphazard talent attraction strategy, which really doesn't kind of attract the best people. Okay, cool. So we've got the research done. We've got the buy-in of the leadership. We talked a small amount about building your key messages and your EVP, IVP, whatever you want to call it, your value proposition that you're going to use to attract people. Okay, so let's say we've got all of that together. We've built it all. We've created a couple of pages on our website. This is another place where a lot of companies either get stuck or fail to get the full value out of the project. So the whole build it and they will come theory is broken. Okay, so just because you build an employer branding page on your site doesn't mean anybody's going to visit it. In fact, so Liam Fitzgerald at the employer branding conference run by the Employment Network talked about how 80% of people don't care and don't get to see your employer branding.
Yeah.
So what's the next stage that you do, Ben, to make sure that you actually mobilize this content so it has the impact that you want?
So I guess really, and it's something else that a lot of organisations do, and it's really funny because I had the same conversation with Liam at Wreckfest recently, I think before I had my rum and coke, was that every bit of, so as I said, we've got the EVP, we've got the messaging, and now we've got something to wrap up in content. Every bit of content that you produce, it has to have a CTA. It has to have a call to action. If you just throw out a blog or a video, that video could be directed by Steven Spielberg. It could have amazing storytelling, but if it doesn't lead to anything, who's going to see it?
Yeah.
However, if that video has some Facebook PPC behind it, or if your blog is written by a hiring manager and on the back of that it's linked to a job advert, it means something. So I always say to people that employer branding, it needs to have a purpose. So if you're just wanting to raise your profile, happy days. If you're wanting to recruit against it, happy days. Or if you're wanting to improve internal mobility or engagement, happy days as well. But it has to has something that, and yet again, it's a mistake that I made. In my first days at Sophology, I was throwing things out on LinkedIn, throwing things out on Twitter. No one liked it. No one shared it. And I'm like, oh, right, okay. I'm not very good at this. And you go away and you think, well, actually, it needs that call to action. It needs to mean something. So rather than just saying we're hiring in IT, why don't I create a very small infographic showing our tech stack so the developers can look at it, analyze it, get a little bit, turned on by all the tech. And instead of just advertising it in normal copy, why don't I put the advert in binary code? Because it will get people's attention. And actually, if I don't know if people remember, but it exploded. And it just that little bit of, and because of that, it led to something. So all of a sudden, my piece of content, I can say it had, 100 clicks. 50 of those went through to the website. 20 of those applied. We interviewed 5 and we hired 1. So all of a sudden, this bit of content has a cost avoidance of $8,000 because that's what it would have cost to recruit for an agency. Everything in employer branding, I know it might sound like a broken record, but it needs to mean something and it needs that call to action. Okay,
cool. That's great advice there. So it is. Did you do anything on the back of that? So I suppose going back to the whole agile theory, create the minimum viable product or create a piece of content that you think will work, add a call to action to it, do that over a period of time. Eventually you see something explode and you go, people are engaged and are interested in that. Did you do anything on the back of that to develop further content, or did you do anything to develop that further as a strategy to try and attract people?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I'm not creating, I'm not, kind of recreating the wheel now, but, people aren't really interested in me or my recruitment team or my strategy around employer branding. They're interested in people who are currently doing the job that they may apply for.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's something that we've done a lot here and also did at Sophology, but the real stars of your business are your employees. And the term employer-generated content, without getting a little bit too excited, it's gold. It's absolute gold dust, because people will see through a employer branding video of a guy in a suit looking out of a window out to Canary Wharf. They will look through a mountain shot of a salmon jumping and whatever it is. We've all seen the stock videos. However, they will happily watch a short video of a meeting in IT or a talk or equality and diversity or something like that. That is genuine and straight from the horse's mouth. So one of my big things at Sophology, and one of my big things here was, when I go and speak to people, I like to call myself a speaker, because all I'm doing is amplifying your story. So one of the things that I've done recently, and it's on YouTube if you want to look, hint, hint, is we created a video with our IT director. It's all about him. It's all about the people in the team. There's nothing in there that relates to us or what we do and all the rest of it. In the same that we're starting to create some video job descriptions by the hiring manager, by somebody in the job, because they know that job more than anyone. So it's really about kind of breaking down the barriers, getting some really good engagement, and just kind of stepping back. All right, okay, we've got this audience now. Let's pass the microphone to the real storytellers and almost let them do the job for us. And I've seen it myself, and I've seen it on other in other organisations. If you can get that genuine and transparent content, your attraction and your branding it'll go through the roof. It really will.
Absolutely. We're doing something similar at the minute with a construction client whose recruitment team regularly go out to site, and literally what they're doing is they're bringing their iPhones with them and doing a very quick Q&A with people on the site. There's still traffic noise in the background. There's still construction noise in the background. Everything's still happening. It's real world footage of real world people doing real world things. And to me, that has more impact than a polished up, well shot video of somebody that isn't even a scaffolder pretending to work on scaffold.
You know what? It really isn't. And the one thing that I made, going back to my IT director video, when I arrived to film the video, he laughed at me because I had my iPhone, I had a tripod that cost me £4, and I had a 4 meter long kind of microphone that just goes there that cost £9. That's my film. That's how I film. I can film HD videos. I can drop them into iMovie. I can put some names on there. Job done. That's it. It doesn't need more than that. And I think the more corporate you go, the less interest you'll have from people.
Absolutely. Completely agree. It's funny. That's exactly my tech stack for doing all of my TAHack videos.
Honestly, mobiles, they're amazing. They are.
They are. Brilliant. Okay, so we are going through time rightly here, Ben. So where can we see you, or where can we get in touch with you next if we want to talk more about this sort of kind of getting going with DIY and programming?
Super. So you can find me on Twitter at Recruiter Guy NW. That's at Recruiter Guy NW. You'll usually see me on LinkedIn sharing bits and pieces on there as well. But if you want to see some of the cool stuff that we're doing at the moment, because I'm a big believer in if you talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk as well. If you follow at ManMetJobs on Twitter, you'll be able to see some of the cool content that we're throwing out. And if you want to get in contact with me via any of those channels, I'm always very happy to share insights and help and, lend a hand where I can. Okay, great. That's been great stuff today, Ben. Thank you so much for coming on the TAHack. And I'm sure we will have the opportunity to have you back on again in the future and maybe showcase some of the
the stuff that you're doing with the university. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, sounds good. Cheers.
All right, good man. Catch you later.
Cheers, Ian. See you later. Bye.
Bye.